Elizabeth Holmes, and knowing that this is out there, I'm going to say to you that if you somehow make this episode into another weapon with which to bludgeon, the females in our society, then you're doing it completely without our blessing or input or encouragement. This is just you doing what you were always going to do, and we want no part of it. Correct, Sibel?
Oh, absolutely. I'm really sad to hear about that. That's
yeah.
But yeah,
it's
I
the
think
most
you're
ridiculous
right.
thing.
People who are looking for an excuse will find it. That's basically it.
That's it.
I cannot imagine. It shocks me to hear that someone would take any example and just be like, "This is why the entire gender should not be invested in."
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was in the Harvard Business Review or one of the. It was one of them really reputable, publications, right? And there was this article about women just coming forward with their stories and how since Elizabeth Holmes happened, they get like this barrage of disparaging comments, sort of comparing them to her, right? It's like, what the hell, man? What the hell?
That's insane.
What does this have to do with anything? But anyway, so here we are. We're going to talk about Elizabeth Anne Holmes. So let's take that quick break. Let that sink in. Feel free to, tune out if you came on here seeing the title and you thought, yay, another thing to hit women with, right? Elizabeth Holmes. They're going to make fun of her. And by doing so, they're going to make fun of the whole gender. If that's why you came, there's the door. Don't let it hit you on your way out. That's perfectly fine. But if you're here for some good old harebrained schemes humor, stick with us, and we will be right back after these messages. Don't go nowhere.
See y'all.
And we're back.
Hello.
We're back with Harebrained Schemes, a podcast hosted by Bibi and Sibel. And today we are talking about Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes,
so,
not Theranos.
Mm-hmm. And Theranos, right. So, Sibel, you want to do the honors today and just kick us off in the Wikipedia, which is where we typically like to start.
Sure.
Would you mind?
No, not at all. Honor? All right. So, here we go from the Wikipedia. Elizabeth Anne Holmes, born February 3rd, 1984, is an American former biotechnology entrepreneur who was convicted of criminal fraud. In 2003, Holmes founded and was the chief executive officer of Theranos, a now defunct health technology company that soared in valuation after the company claimed to have revolutionized blood testing by developing methods that could use surprisingly small volumes of blood, such as from a finger prick. By 2015, Forbes had named Holmes the youngest and wealthiest self-made female billionaire in America, on the basis of a $9 billion valuation of her company. In the following year, as revelations of potential fraud about Theranos' claim began to surface, Forbes revised its estimate of Holmes' net worth to 0. And Fortune named her...
Wow, that's harsh.
In its feature article on the world's 19 most disappointing leaders.
Yes. That's quite the fall, all within 1 year. That is, whew.
Wasn't there a Craig David song about this? Please edit in just a snippet of that if you can.
You're not to be encouraged. You're not to be encouraged. You're not to be encouraged. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
Oh, man.
Sometimes in life you feel over.
There we go. I knew I could get you going.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so she started a company, right, that claimed to be able to do something that, medical experts and people working in bioengineering and biotechnology had been trying to.
They were. So the whole concept of lab on a chip and microfluidics and
Mhm,
being able to run reliable tests with very small sample
mhm.
sizes has been something that has been worked on since, like, I mean, they were doing it in
As
college when I
small
was.
as a finger prick.
Yeah. We are even smaller, like even smaller.
Interesting.
Um, when I was interning at that FDA lab in college, across from me was a
Hmm.
guy who was working on the microfluidics lab on a chip stuff.
Okay. Okay.
And he then ended up starting his company in Singapore. And that was,
Interesting.
as early as 2007, 2008.
Okay.
Um, so it's been something that's been worked on for a long time, but to say something's been worked on for a long time is not the same as saying that something has matured to the point of being
Right.
deployable. So,
Right.
for
So she was
example,
going to accelerate all of that, right? She was going to be the person who broke that, sort of barrier, that wall, that she was going to be able to be the first to market on this. She was going to make a killing, and she was going to revolutionize, essentially, she was going to be the leap. Every so often you
mm,
have a significant leap in a practice or a field of study, or a profession or whatever, and or in a branch of science or whatever. She was gonna be the guy. You know what I mean?
yeah,
um
absolutely. In my amateur exposure to the field, it is
right,
rare
right.
for
Hmm.
something to move that quickly.
She was gonna
Um,
be a rock star.
like, for example, let's talk about the COVID vaccine and the whole mRNA technology. The
Mm.
mRNA technology has been under development for 30 years.
Yeah, yeah,
And
people don't know that,
yeah, people
right?
don't know that. The lady,
People thought it was because of, in the last year or two
yeah,
that the
no. So the
mRNA came up.
mRNA
It's been.
technology has been in
Mm,
development, and someone,
right.
like anyone who's in the field, feel free to like chime in. But it's been in development for 30 years. The lady who was working on it is this very talented scientist, I think out of Germany. And she had been at it about 7 years ago. They tried running tests on it for both SARS and Ebola for
Hmm.
vaccinations. They then just decided
Hmm.
it didn't make sense financially. And then when COVID
Hmm.
hit, basically
That's crazy. That's
everyone
crazy
around,
how many good ideas get shelved because, in quote, they don't make sense financially. What about
yeah,
for the common good? What about for humanity? Does it make sense for
oh,
humanity?
100%. And
Let's not even go down that road.
let's
But
not go
I just
there.
had to
Let's,
say
yeah,
something.
it's
Yeah,
no,
I
no.
just had to say
I
that. Yeah.
actually, I mean, I completely agree. But the thing that allowed mRNA to go from, hey, like this is something like 7 years ago, we were already able to build vaccines that we're running human trials on, which is pretty significant,
Right.
to where it is today, was every major lab in the world effectively joined hands. This was
Right.
maybe one of the most connected, concerted efforts in like human
Right.
science ever.
Right. Right.
And that's how this all
Right.
happened. Um,
Hmm.
and every government was like, okay, we're going to work with you on red tape. We're going to, like, it
Hmm.
was so coordinated that we were
Right.
able to get to this. So if you just look at that and then you look at what Elizabeth Holmes was proposing to take testing from, here to just like the space age, it
Hmm.
already sounds a bit like far fetched potentially to me. Like now that I look back at it, like if one was to just
Hairbrained,
say
maybe.
harebrained would be the right word. I don't know if I'd use that personally. I'm not a big fan of harebrained as a word. It's just so strange to me. Never heard it before, truthfully. hair, hair,
Hello.
hello, harebrained,
Hello.
odd.
Hello.
Uh, um, but yeah, so my amateurish understanding is that the 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 advance she was saying that she was trying to make in such a short
Mm-hmm.
period of time
Mm.
was really unrealistic. It was to the point where it
Right.
just
And
wouldn't
she
have
was
made
told the
sense.
same, right, by a few people, but she kept
Including
going
her
until
own
she found someone.
advisors at Stanford.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. But she kept going until she found someone who said yes, right? Which is, there's a lesson in here, children, is if someone says no, keep going until you find someone who says yes.
What really bothers me about the whole thing is that what was it? Her advisor. So she succeeded in getting her advisor and the dean at the School of Engineering to back her. And both of these
Mm,
people have a an intellectual and academic responsibility to back things
hmm.
that are, you know, scientifically valid. And it
You're
is
right.
clear from the other conversations that we have seen that what she was
Right.
proposing was not scientifically valid. And if there was
Right.
any place in the world that could answer that question, it would be
Right.
Stanford, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know?
Now let's think about a little bit, let's think a little bit about why otherwise intelligent people might have been suckered into stuff like this, right?
Mm.
And I think a big part of it is FOMO, right? You know what that is? Fear of missing out.
Oh.
Silicon Valley is littered with, you know, these success stories of meteoric rises um, by people who pitched an idea that at some point was considered impossible, right? Until they
Yeah.
did it. And then it was like, all the people who didn't jump in on the ground floor are
Lost
now
out.
left twiddling their thumbs, exactly, twiddling their thumbs and wishing that they had, jumped in, even though at the time they didn't jump in, not because of any malicious reasons, but because they just could not see the viability of what was being proposed. And so,
Right.
with that backdrop and with literally hundreds of examples of this all around you, if you live in the greater California area, you might be an otherwise intelligent person
Mm-hmm.
getting suckered into a harebrained scheme because you feel like if this person is so convinced that this is possible,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps I don't know as much as I think I do. And maybe it is in my best interest to, you know, join in, right?
I wonder,
That's got to be part of it.
maybe, but then I'm also wondering what, if we take what you're saying and then we look at the kind of board that she put together, right? And Bibi, you mentioned some of these names, but I remember, what was it? Henry Kissinger was on there.
Henry Kissinger was on her board. It was a very
Betsy
intentional,
DeVos was
deliberate.
on there.
Betsy DeVos was on there. Yes. These are all people who either had served at the time or were on their way to serving at the very top of the U.S. government. So we had Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, Jim Mattis, right? The same General Jim Mattis,
Whoa.
right? Betsy DeVos, right? And of course, Henry Kissinger, who, yeah, I mean, he needs no introduction. So,
Right.
I mean, it was very intentional, and she leveraged her connections, her family connections. Interesting.
Yeah, I think this is a really great point to
here.
bring up the family, right? I think
the family. Let's enter the family.
Enter the family. Oh my god. So if anyone is familiar with any harebrained schemes of any sort in the business world in the last 100 years, you may have heard of Enron.
A certain small company.
A disaster, a business disaster that is shared in case studies as like, this is what you do not do. And Elizabeth's father was a vice president at Enron.
He was a VP.
He was a VP. He was a vice president at Enron. And yeah, and then her father, and I find this concerning. He worked at the US EPA, which is also a bit of an issue. She was born in DC, so they obviously